Hi friends, I'm Jackie from the Reading Wordsmith and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to continue setting up my 2026 reading journal and do my January update. Before we get started on continuing my spread setups and updating my journal for January, I thought it would be a good idea to give you a quick flip through of all the spreads that we've worked on, and then I will let you know which spreads I will update in this video as part of my January end of month wrap up. So first we have my title pages, which I've gone over many times. This one is in a pastel pink and we have a lot of astrology themes. As you can see kind of throughout this journal, I do use a lot of astrology washi tapes, and that's something that I am very drawn to, that sort of aesthetic. We will see on this page, this is another set of title pages and it's more dark academia themed, and we have some of that morally gray sort of fantasy aspects coming through on these pages. Then we have my index for my reading, film, and TV journal. I haven't really set this up, but I do plan on setting this up. So I think I do want to actually set up some of my spreads on this index to kind of start keeping track of them. I'm not sure if I will end up filming that for you. I will let you know once I make a decision on that. I might just end up doing this off camera and show you after the fact. I don't know how interesting it'll be to see the setup process happening, but I do need to get this ready because we are now at the beginning of February and I do want this index pretty much set up for the rest of the year. Then we have my 2026 books read spreads. These are all in a lighter academia theme, and we are using stickers and washi tape on these pages from the Wrong Bookworm Volume 3 set, as you can see here, and I'll just be recording the title, author, and rating for each of the books that I end up reading. Then we have my 2026 movies and television watch spread. We will also be doing some updates here, and this one is more monochromatic, black and white themed, and we've kind of got some of that vintage old Hollywood preppy look to these spreads, which I absolutely loved. And we used some more elements from the Wrong Bookworm Volume 3 set, but here we kind of see the introduction of me using some recycled materials from book pages and things like that, and you will see that kind of throughout my journal spreads. Here we have my 2026 reading goal spread, and I do want to take some time to evaluate how I am doing with each of these. I have not been doing too great with my reading goals so far in 2026, so I want to make more active plans to achieve many of these goals for the upcoming months of the year. Then we have my Goodreads challenge for 2026. This is all set up for me to start filling in this update. We will start to fill in these numbers with the colors that correspond to the genre of that book I read. So for the first book of the year, I believe I might have read like a literary fiction, so it'll probably get shaded in this green, and we'll go from there. Then we have my bookshelfie. We will also be doing some updates to this very soon. I'm so excited to start writing in the titles and coloring in all the spines on this spread. And then we have my 26 books in 2026 spread. I will do an evaluation to see if I've actually finished any of these books, and so on and so forth as I update my journal. And again, I will do the same with my leftover 25 in 2025 list. This one is very similar to my 26 in 2026 list. It just has some more wintry theme to it. It's a little bit of a lighter blue, the decoration scheme, and I'm really obsessed with the look of both of these spreads. So I think they both turned out so well. And then we have my 12 classics in 12 months spread. This one's all gold vintage themed, which I absolutely love. And I feel like the elements of the spread are very simple but effective and still come together in a beautiful way. And then we have my Read the Rainbow challenge. I'll let you know what I can end up updating for this. We have my publication years tracker, which we will definitely be doing some updates here. For every single book I read in the month of January, I will update it in the corresponding shelf based off either the century or the decade the book was published in. It's just a fun tracker for me to have just to see what years the books I'm reading were published in. And then we have my monthly TBR jar picks from January. We'll be updating those. Those are the prompt jar picks. And then we'll also be doing some updates for the title jar picks that I picked for January. And we'll also have an update to do for my Shades of Magic read-along spread, since we have finished the first book and we had our live show discussion for A Darker Shade of Magic. We will be having reading sprints for A Gathering of Shadows coming up very soon on February 15th, which I'm so excited for that. And we'll be having our live show for this upcoming on March 1st, I believe it is. I will leave all the information for this read along in my description, but this month we'll be doing our reading sprints and our live show over on Stephanie at Stephanie Book Versus channel. So I'll leave all of her information in the description in case you're interested in joining us for this read along and for the live discussion. And then we have my Tea and Biscuits Society Book Club updates, which I will be doing and adding in my book here. A little spoiler alert, I have finished the January pick for the Tea and Biscuit Society Book Club, so I will be adding in the cover and the rating here, and I'm so excited to have actually read one of these book club books. I'm just so excited to continue on and read more of their book club reads for 2026. And then we have the Jane Austen read along. January was Sense and Sensibility, so I'll be giving you my update on that book. I haven't quite finished it, so I don't have a final rating for it, and I am going to be trying my best to finish Sense and Sensibility as soon as possible, just so I can update the spread and not fall too far behind on the read-along. My goal is to try to finish Sense and Sensibility by the end of February. I don't know that I will be doing a retelling for February just because I have so many books on my TBR and it is such a short month. I will try, but it's not going to be my highest priority for this month as I do have another major read along going on and some other things happening this month, so it's not going to be the highest priority for me to get to that. But I do want to finish Sense and Sensibility this month. And then we have my Historical Hellions book club spread. I didn't quite get around to the January pick for Historical Hellions. I really wanted to read it and then I just didn't have time in the month. I will still add in the cover here and hopefully I can get to it in a later month in the year, but so far haven't been able to finish the first pick for this. And the same goes for the Leave It to the Pros book club. I didn't quite finish the January book, so hopefully it's one that I can pick up and finish later on in 2026. I will try my best to prioritize these book club reads later on, but at the end of the day, participating in these book clubs is just for fun, and I know that my schedule can be very demanding, so I just haven't had all the time that I would have liked to dedicate to all these reads. And then we have my Fiction Falls book club spread. There's nothing really to update here because the first 4 months of the year are for the A Darker Shade of Magic read along, so we won't be adding any covers or anything to this until later on in the year. Towards the end of the second quarter is when this spread will really start to take effect. So I did set up my buddy read spreads for 2026. And I have them both set up from the last part. I will be updating this at the end of February once I finish my buddy read of The Bell Jar with Bonnie Nicole Wrights. I'll leave her channel linked in the description below in case you're interested in checking out her videos. I'm not entirely sure if we will end up doing a live discussion for this, or if we will just chat ourselves and then talk about our feelings in our wrap-up. But I will be including at least the book cover and my review for The Bell Jar on here. And I'm currently doing another buddy read that I started last August for Moby Dick, which I will also be including the cover here and adding the review there. And hopefully I'll have some more buddy reads as the year progresses to fill up these two spreads. But these are in a florally bookshelf theme. I love the look of them so much. And it was my first attempt at using some stamping on these spreads, so I was excited about that. It did turn out a little bit smeared because I didn't let the stamping dry fully, and I didn't really know exactly how to use the stamps yet, but I am glad that I did experiment with them a little bit, and I will do some more trial and error with them as I continue to set up my 2026 reading journal. And then we have my January book bingo spread. So this I will be updating to see if I got a bingo in January. I will also update my January TBR on this spread and what I ended up actually getting to, so I will do all of those updates. And I will also pick 6 of my favorite reads from the month of January. I believe I read around 10 different books in January, which was a pretty solid month for me. Actually, that's more than I've been reading in the last couple of months, so I'm really proud of my progress. And I will be adding in the covers for the 6 favorite books of mine from January and their ratings, and then a little bit of a review on the sides here. I don't know if I have all the covers printed yet, but I will get those printed. I might just write in the title for now and then print those off camera and add them into my journal later. But you'll still see me filling in my ratings for each of the books and writing in my summaries. And I'm so excited for this. I did have some great reads in the month of January. And in this spread, we're back to the astrology theme using my favorite color of purple. And of course, I will also be updating my movies and TV watch spread and review spreads, very similar to my book TBR spread and my book review spread. And again, we continue on with the astrology purple theme for January. Previously, I also set up my 5-star read spread. This is in a very golden theme, and I love the look of this so much. I actually do have an update for this spread, which is so exciting. Again, I'm gonna have to do some printing off camera for the book cover to add it in here, but I'm excited and I can't wait to hopefully fill up this spread. Hopefully I will have enough 5-star reads to fill up both of these pages by the end of the year. That is the dream goal. I don't give the 5-star rating very lightly, and it's pretty hard for a book to impress me that much, but I do want to fill up these spreads because that would mean that I had a very successful reading year. And we have also set up my spread for my top 10 books of 2026. This is all purple lilac flowery themed, and I'm not going to be touching the spread until the end of the year when I end up choosing which books are going to end up on this list. I also have my book bracket set up, and I will be choosing my favorite book of January to add in here for my January favorites. And eventually that January favorite will go up against my February and March favorite books. And between those three, I will choose a favorite of them to choose a quarterly favorite, and then a semi-finalist and a winner at the end of the year. I'm really obsessed with the look of this spread. I love the plants and the greenery in here, and just the mix of the turquoise and green colors. It's a very different sort of look for my reading journal, but that makes it all the more intriguing and exciting to look at. And then at the end of my journal, we have my 2026 reading bingo. I do have to finish setting up the spread. I just have not had time to sit down with my reading journal and finish the setup, so I will be doing that either on camera in this part or off camera, and then I'll show you what I ended up doing. But I just do want to do some more decorations. And then I think this page will be kind of a tracker for the bingo, so I will put in the numbers and then write in the book title and author for each of the numbers. So for number 1 on the reading bingo, it says pick a card, any card. Read a book chosen at random from your TBR. For example, if I had a book for that, I would write in 1, and then I would write in the title of the book and the author. I think I'm going to keep this spread pretty much open for that so I can keep track of that. And then at the end of the year, I will really be able to see if I made a full bingo for 2026, which I'm hoping to make at least one by the end of the year. And then we also have my 26 in 2026 bingo board for the Tea and Biscuit Society with Tara and B. I'm excited to fill this out as well. Hopefully I will also get a bingo for this by the end of the year, and I'm going to see if I have any updates for this as of the end of January. And of course, I would like to set up the spread a little bit more and use some decorations for it, but I believe that this page will also be like a tracker page. So if I have a book that has a fake relationship in it, I'll write in fake relationship and then the title of the book and the author of it as well. That way I can keep track of them, and at the end of the year, figure out where my bingos lie. So I do have some printouts of covers here. I will be adding them in and kind of filling in the spreads that I've already set up so far for January, and just seeing where things kind of fit, and we'll go from there. So I'll do a flip through, and as I flip through, I will start filling in the spreads. So first, I'm gonna update my 2026 books read spread. So I'll add in the title, author, and my reading for each of the books that I read in January. So I will speed you through this process, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the books that I ended up reading this month. Okay, so I've updated all the books that I ended up reading in January. First, I read I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I gave this 4 stars. Then I read a few American Girl books just because I was in that nostalgic mood and wanted to revisit some favorite things from childhood. So I read Meet Samantha, Samantha Learns a Lesson, and Samantha's Surprise, all by Susan S. Adler. And I get them all like 3.5, 3, and 4 stars. I finished The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and I gave that 5 stars, which I'm so excited about that. I can't wait to talk more about that in my wrap up. I love that book so much, more than I anticipated I would love it. And I know it's so many people's favorite, but I get a little bit wary with very hyped fantasies. Yeah, I still love that one. Then I read The Place Where They Buried Your Heart by Christina Henry. That was a book club read for January, part of the Haunted Library book club, and I'm excited for the February pick. I think I gave this one like a 3.5 star rating. And then we have Saga Volumes 7 and 8 by Brian K. Vaughan. I haven't picked up a Saga volume in quite a while, but I do want to catch up and finish this series by the end of 2026. Actually, hopefully in the first half of 2026, I'll get caught up with where the series is at to this point. I believe there are 12 volumes total, so I'm a little bit past the halfway point. And I gave Volume 7 4 stars and Volume 8 3 stars. I just feel like as the series has progressed, I'm not enjoying the volumes as much as the first ones, which is a little bit disappointing. And then I realized I missed a book, but the last few books that I read this month are The Sisters of Seaview by Julie Klassen. I gave that one like 3.25 stars. A Winter by the Sea by Julie Klassen, and that one I just gave 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite. And then A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which I gave 3.5 stars as well. So it had a pretty solid month. I had a couple of 4-star reads, 1 5-star read, and a handful in the 3-star range, which is pretty solid for me. A little bit more towards the average side of things, but I did have that 1 5-star, which is very impressive for me. So yeah, that's pretty much all the books that I ended up reading in January. We've made some decent progress into this first spread. Hopefully I can keep this momentum going in February and read quite a few books in this month as well, even though it is quite short. I know that we're already like 6 days in and I haven't finished a book for the month yet, so I do want to make some more progress on that over the weekend, hopefully, and get some more reading done, but I'm pleased with the progress I've made so far, and I would like to read as much as possible in February, even if I don't get to as many books as I did in January. So then we have my 2026 movies and television watch spread. I'm gonna have to take a dig through. I know that I watched a new season of All Creatures Great and Small in January of 2026. So far I haven't watched a ton of movies and TV shows for the year, but I have read the whole first season of All Creatures Great and Small, and then I'm going to have to think and see which other things I ended up watching in January. I didn't do a great job of tracking everything that I watched, but I was mainly watching like YouTube videos or reading, so there's not going to be a lot to update in the spread. I'm going to have a flip through some of my streaming services and do a little bit of a thinking, and I'll speed you through my update process and tell you what I ended up watching this month. Alright, so the only things I've updated on here are a few shows that I've been continuing to watch. So I've just watched the new season of the show that I've been watching. So the first one is All Creatures Great and Small, Season 6. The director that I found online is Andy Hay, and the release year is 2026. And I'm just watching this because I've been watching the show since it started releasing. I watch quite a few different like PBS and like historical shows with my mom as well, so some of those are featured in here. We also have one called The Heart, Season 13. I also watched this with my mom, and I added in the directors that I found online. So that's Peter DeLuise and Elise Late Rogers, and that's also released in 2026. Then we have Bridgerton Season 4 Part 1. I've been so obsessed with Part 1 of Season 4 so far. I can't wait for the second part of Season 4 to be released. I've been loving the show so much. And technically, I've been watching this in February, but I decided to just add it in before I forgot. And the director that I found for at least episode 1 was Tom Verica. And release year, of course, is 2026. And then I watched with my mom also Call the Midwife, the 2025 Christmas special, and the director for that is Sid McCartney. I don't think I've really seen any movies in 2026 so far, at least not in January. I didn't watch a lot of TV shows or anything like that. I was mainly reading this month, so I don't have a lot to update here. I do anticipate watching the new season of Emily in Paris very soon, so I will have that to add to this list. I really want to watch the People We Meet on Vacation movie that's on Netflix and add that here. I also want to watch the Wuthering Heights movie, which is coming out very soon, but I haven't seen a lot of movies or TV shows yet in the year. This will definitely get filled out some more in the upcoming months. Some months are just more book-heavy months for me, and some are more TV and movie-heavy for me, especially when I get into like finals mode. I do a lot of rewatching or watching like the new season of a show that I've already been watching for a while. So I'm excited to see how this spread will come along as the year progresses. Then with my 2026 reading goals, there's nothing really for me to update here. I will take some time off camera to reflect on these, see what changes I need to make for February to make things happen. I know I'm on track with a few of these. Like, I'm definitely already on track to read 100 books in 2026. I haven't read really any translated fiction or nonfiction this year yet, so I do need to make those more of a priority. I have not quite finished a classic yet this year. I'm in the middle of 2 different classics, Moby Dick and Sense and Sensibility, and I'm going to be picking up The Bell Jar for February, and possibly Wuthering Heights later in February or March. So I do anticipate finishing at least one of those soon. Hopefully I'll finish a couple of them in February to get back on track with this goal. And then with reading at least 50% BIPOC fiction, I think that I'm a little bit off target with this. I've been reading mainly books written by white authors because I've been doing a lot of book club reads for January, and many of those just weren't written by BIPOC authors, so that's definitely something that I want to evaluate going forward. I also picked out some prompts from my prompt jar and my title jar that just weren't by BIPOC authors, so I want to do a better job of how I set up my TBRs going forward. I'm not sure if I will continue carrying through the same prompt jar picks that I have or the same titles. Maybe I'll make myself draw multiple different titles from my title jar until I reach a BIPOC one, or do some different challenges for the prompt jar just to make sure that I am reaching this goal, because this is a big priority for me in 2026 and January didn't go all that well for it. In terms of writing and sharing more book reviews, I really haven't done this a lot in January either. It's been a very chaotic month, but I do want to take a day to sit down and just update book reviews, maybe catch up with some BookTube videos and update my reviews as I do so. And then I do want to read more physical books and rely less on audiobooks. I'm making some progress on that. I've read a couple of things physically this month. And as for making progress on my physical TBR, I haven't really done a lot of that yet, but I'm hoping to do more of it, especially in these summer months. In terms of reading outside of my comfort genres and experimenting, I feel like I've been doing a good job at this, at least picking up 1 or 2 titles that are outside of my comfort genre for January, and I expect that I will do this again in February, so I'm not too worried about this one. And then in terms of falling back in love with the fantasy genre, I think this is already in progress, so I think I've made progress towards at least half of these, and I'm pretty proud of that. I'm gonna place some more intentional focus on the goals that I haven't really made progress with, and some of them are just things like reading more of something or falling back in love with something, so that's a little bit more subjective. And there's no real measurable way for me to determine if I've fallen back in love with fantasy, for example. But I'm gonna still try my best to achieve these goals in whatever ways I think fit best for me. In terms of my predictions, there's nothing really to kind of examine there. I think I am falling more in love with historical romance so far, but everything else is just predictions for later on in the year, so there's nothing to really kind of evaluate there. Now for my Goodreads challenge for 2026, I'm also going to to be updating this. I read 11 books in January, so I'm going to be filling them in based off of the colors that I picked out here, and we're just going to shade them in by genre. I'll speed you through my process, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the genres that I ended up reading in January and my overall spread for that. Okay, so I did a genre update for this. The first book I read in 2026 was a sci-fi fantasy. It was sci-fi specifically. I realized I didn't have a category for sci-fi, so I just combined it with fantasy, and I thought that would be fine. Then I had 3 historical fiction reads, because that was the Meet Samantha books. Another fantasy book, that was The House in the Cerulean Sea. And then we had a horror book, that was The Place Where They Buried Your Heart, which was definitely outside of my comfort zone, but I liked it much more than I expected to. And then we had some more fantasy books. We had Sagas Volume 7 and 8, some more historical fiction with The Sisters of Sea View and A Winter by the Sea, and then finally we had A Darker Shade of Magic, which is also fantasy. So we have quite a few historical fiction books and quite a few fantasy books for January, and then we have one book that is outside of my comfort zone, so I'm pretty happy with that. Moving along, we have my bookshelfie. I'm going to fill these in, and then I'm going to shade in 11 spots for the 11 books I read and color them in based off of the color of the cover of them. And I expect that by the end of the year, we'll have kind of like a rainbow layout for this. I'm so excited for it. I can't wait to see what this will end up looking like, but I'll speed you through my update process. Alright, so I updated all the books that I ended up reading, and then I shaded them in based off the color of the cover. I used some color pencils to shade them in, just to make sure that I could still read the titles, and I'm happy with how it looks. It's not my favorite, but I didn't want to shade them in too dark just to be able to still read them. And I think it'll look really nice once they're all shaded in. So that's pretty much the update for the bookshelfie. Next, we have my 26 books in 2026 list. And I read one of these books in January. So I read A Darker Shade of Magic. I ended up rating this one 3.5 stars. So I'm just going to update that here. And I haven't really read any of the others yet. I haven't made plans for when I will read these, but I do need to start making some progress on more of this list if I want to finish a majority of it by the end of 2026, which is my goal. I'm just going to shade that in. Perfect. So we have 3.5 stars. That was my rating for A Darker Shade of Magic. Trying to make it look nice there. Perfect. 3.5 stars. So I do have actually 7 days in June on my February TBR. I'm trying to see if I have any others from this list on my TBRs. I don't have any others from this list on my February TBR. I do have another Abby Jimenez, which is Yours Truly on my February TBR, but not Part of Your World. So hopefully I'll read Yours Truly this month in February and then Part of Your World later on in the year. That's my hope. And some of these will be good for the fall and springtime. Hopefully I can get quite a few of these knocked out in the upcoming months of the year. I do think I want to add Wuthering Heights to my March TBR since it didn't end up making the cut for February, and I would like to read the book before watching the film adaptation, so hopefully that's when I can get to in the first quarter of 2026. And then I have my leftover 25 in 2025 list. I'm just gonna take a quick look. I don't think I read any of these for the month of January. Nope, nothing on this page. I'm currently reading Sense and Sensibility, so once I finish that and have my reading for it, I will be able to update this one. And there's nothing else from this list that I read in January or even that's on my February TBR, so I want to make them more of a priority in March. Then for 12 classics in 12 months, I don't really have an update for that. I do want to add in Sense and Sensibility for this, and I have the cutout for it. So once I have finished it, I can add it into this spread. But because I haven't finished this one yet, I can't add it just yet. Hopefully I'll be able to add this for my February end of month updates. So stay tuned for that. I'm hoping to be able to add in Sense and Sensibility and at least one more classic for February. I'm thinking The Bell Jar will go in my February spot, and then Sense and Sensibility will be there for like my January pick. In terms of Read the Rainbow Challenge, I'm gonna have to take a look and see what books I ended up reading in January, see what colors it can kind of fulfill. I know that I have a purple looking cover with The Place Where They Buried Your Heart, so I think I will use that for the color purple. And we'll kind of take a look and see. I think right now I do want to map out like the basic colors of the rainbow, like the red, orange, yellow, indigo, blue, violet, etc. And then I'll leave some empty spots for some extra colors that are outside of the rainbow, but I want to map those out and write them in at the bottom of each of these boxes so I know where to put the corresponding covers. That way it's more organized for upcoming updates. And then I'll outline in pencil the titles for the covers that I need to print out to fulfill any of the colors that I think I ended up fulfilling in January. So then I can print that out the next time I do a sticker print, and that way I can keep track of what covers I need to print out. So I am going to keep a running list of book covers that I need to print out. That way I know what I need for my next update. And I might add in some things off camera just to get things sorted, but I do want to list them out to keep myself accountable and have things organized. So I'll speed you through the process of updating that list, writing in the colors, and writing in which titles I think fits some of the colors that I read in January, just updating the spread overall. Okay, so I outlined the colors that I know for sure are going to be on the spread. So we have our rainbow colors. I outlined a few books that I think will fit these, and I have to just print out the covers. So Saga Volume 7 is a green cover. I don't know for sure if I will read any other books that have a green cover on them, so I decided to use that for this one. A Winter by the Sea I'm going to use for indigo since it has some of those light purple colors. And then The Place Where They Buried Your Heart will be a perfect fit for the violet color. I think I might have some other books later on in the year that will fit the red, blue, orange, and yellow colors. And then I don't know what to do with these yet. I might do like a darker purple one. I'm not entirely sure what these are going to be filled with, but I'm going to use some more variations of the rainbow colors for these spots as well. But that's just my initial mapping of this. I will print these covers off camera and then I will add them in. So then we have my publication years tracker, and I'm gonna have to check what years each of these books were published in. So I read 11 books in January. I know that quite a few of them were published in the 2000s. So I don't know if I'm gonna be updating anything from this side of the tracker. I know Sense and Sensibility obviously was published in the 1700s, but I haven't finished that one yet. So I won't be adding that in yet, but I will be updating mainly this side of the spread, and I'll kind of speed you through my update process for this. Okay, so I've done some updates here. I did have to write quite small in some of these boxes, but I think it's still legible. So we have a few titles for 2020 to 2026. I'm definitely gonna run out of space here, so I might have to do a little flip in for this year because I did not leave myself enough room for this shelf, at least for sure. And then we have a few titles also that were published in 2011 to 2020. A few that ended up being published between 1980 and 1999, which was pretty surprising because I didn't really anticipate that. And then nothing for any of the other centuries or decades. Then we have my monthly TBR jar prompt picks. I did pick out 2 prompts for January. I will end up writing what the prompts are on the sides here. I don't think I have covers printed out for them, and I actually haven't read either of the books that I really wanted to read for these prompts. So I'm not going to be adding in the book cover, but I'll write in what the prompts were for January. So I'll add in January 1, January 2, and then the prompts on the side, I believe. And once I've read them, I'll add in the cover and my rating. And I'm hoping to fulfill all the prompts that I pick by the end of the year. I didn't actually end up picking out any prompts for my February TBR, so hopefully that'll give me a little bit more time to read the prompts I picked out for January this month. So as you'll see, my prompts for January were to read a book that I got from a little free library and a book that has been adapted into either a movie or TV show. I didn't actually end up fulfilling either of these in January, but I'm hoping to read a book to fulfill at least one of these in February. Then we have my monthly TBR jar title picks. I believe one of my picks for this was Daisy Jones and the Six. I don't know if I have a printout here of it. Let me take a look. I have A Winter by the Sea, Sense and Sensibility, The Roaring Days of Zora Lily, The Place Where They Buried Your Heart, The House in the Cerulean Sea. Let me see. I think I have I do have Daisy Jones and the Six, so I can add that in right there. And I don't know if I have any others. I believe I had printed out the other title that I picked out. So I'm going to have a sift through, see if I can find it. If not, I'll have to reprint it. But I believe it was a dog themed book. I think It's a Wonderful Woof by Spencer Quinn. I don't know where that title ended up, but I might have to reprint that. And if that's the case, I'll add it to my list of covers to print for my journal. So let's add in Daisy Jones and the Six. Can get the backing off of this sticker. Perfect. That was one of my TBR jar title picks for January. I'll add that into the box, even though I haven't read it just yet. And I will add in next to it January. So I'll add in Jan 1, number 1. And then the next box will be for January number 2. So Jan number 2. And I don't know where that sticker ended up, but I have lost it. So I'll add it to my list to print out. It's a Wonderful Woof for monthly title picks. Monthly title pick. Just to keep track of what I need to print out to add to my journal. And unfortunately, I didn't get to either of these in the month of January. I had quite an ambitious TBR, so I'm not surprised I didn't get around to it. But I am hoping to read at least maybe Daisy Jones and the Six in February. But let's keep things moving along. Then I did read a book for the Shades of Magic read-along. I read A Darker Shade of Magic, so I'm gonna fill the box in with my rating here. Let me see. I gave this one a 3.5 star rating, so I'll fill in 3.5 of these stars. And then I will write in a review next to it. So I'll kind of speed you through my review writing process. I do like to take some time to think about my thoughts on a book and consider what I liked, what I didn't like, what I thought was executed really well, and all of that when writing my reviews. I try to be objective, but also take into consideration my own subjective feelings in reviews. So ideally, I'd like to have a balance of both of those components in all of my reviews. And I don't really want to give something a low rating or a poor review if I just didn't like it because I wasn't in the right mood set for it. So I'm trying to be better about DNFing books this year if they aren't really working for me. But now I've shaded in the 3.5 stars that I gave it, and I'll write in my review here, so let's speed you through that process. Okay, so I updated my review. I basically just said that A Darker Shade of Magic was a really fun first installment for a fantasy series. I liked the world development and the different Londons. Kel was a very deeply layered and well-developed character who I felt connected to, and Lila didn't really work for me because she made some reckless decisions throughout the story. There were things that were frustrating at times within the story, and the pacing felt a little bit off. It had a little bit of a slower start, but I thought it was still enjoyable, and it made me quite optimistic to continue the series. So that's just some of my initial thoughts on it. I will delve further into my thoughts on A Darker Shade of Magic in my end of month wrap-up, but that's what I wanted to record for this spread because I do want to keep this updated as I read each of the books, and I just had enough space to fit in my whole review here. I'm definitely gonna have to write small for February just to fit it in and make the most of my space, but I'm excited to fully fill in the spread. I think it'll look really nice once I have all my reviews and ratings in. Then for the Tea and Biscuits Society Book Club, I did read the January pick, which was A Winter by the Sea. So the first book in the series is The Sisters of Sea View, and I also read that in January in anticipation of reading A Winter by the Sea by Julie Klassen. So let me add that in right here. That perfectly fits in there. I rated this one 3 stars, so I'm going to put my rating below the book right here. And I just generally enjoyed this, not as much as the first installment, which I gave 3.25 stars. But part of the reason why I feel like I didn't get to as many book club books for January or to any of my prompt jar picks or title jar picks for the month was because I read these 2 books, which I had no idea exactly how long it would take me to read both The Sisters of Sea View and A Winter by the Sea. It took quite a while actually for me to read both of these. The audiobooks, I think, were around 15 or 16 hours long for each of them, and I sometimes read it with the audiobook and sometimes tandem read it, but it took a while even though I was listening to it at 1.5 to 1.75 speed. I'm a little bit of a slower reader, so that might have factored into things, but hopefully I'll be able to read the February book club pick for this a little bit faster than the January one and be able to get to some more books because of that. I think that was one of the limiting factors or one of the reasons why I just wasn't able to read as much of my January TBR. And then we have the Jane Austen read along. I am going to be adding in Sense and Sensibility here, even though I haven't finished it, but that was the book pick for January. I am hoping to finish this in February. I was reading the Sisters of Sea View series, which was giving me a lot of Sense and Sensibility vibes in January, and that made it difficult because I felt like I was reading books that were so similar to each other. So hopefully I can now finish this in February and get back on track with the read-along for the year. I think reading it while I'm reading other books that are of different genres or have a different context to them would be a good idea, and it won't feel like so much clashing. I think if I had finished Sense and Sensibility in January, it might have sent me into a reading slump just because I was reading such similar books to each other. I'm not going to fill in anything for February here because it's just a retelling month. If I do end up reading a Jane Austen retelling for February, I will add it here and I'll add my rating next to it. And once I finish Sense and Sensibility, I'll add in my rating for this. Then we have the Historical Hellions Book Club spread. The January pick was Angel by Joanna Lindsey. I have been really wanting to try out Joanna Lindsey's writing, and I just have not had the chance to pick up one of her books yet. I think I would really like her historical romances, but January sadly just wasn't the month for me to pick this one up. Hopefully I can do better and maybe pick this one up later on in the year. Any of these book club picks that I don't get to in the month that they were chosen, I will still try to read later on at some point in the year. And once I do, I'll add in my rating so I can hopefully read as many of these as possible. I just set these spreads up in an effort to try to read as many of them as I could and encourage me to do that. Then for the Rake Appreciation Society spread, I do still need to set up this spread. I have not yet done that, but I do need to update this and add in the quarterly picks to read them either in February or March, as Q1 of 2026 will draw to a close much faster than we anticipate. For the Leave It to the Pros book club, the January pick was The Roaring Days of Zora Lily, so I will add this one in. I did not quite get around to finishing The Roaring Days of Zora Lily in January. Hopefully it's one I can finish later on in the year. There are so many different book clubs that I'd like to participate in 2026, which makes it a little bit overwhelming. I'm just going to try to read as many of these picks as I can. I might have to end up picking and choosing certain books from certain clubs in certain months, so I might not get to every book every month, but I do want to rotate through them and get through a variety of different book club picks. Then for the Swoony Readers Society Book Club, I do want to note that there was no book club pick for January, so I didn't miss a book for this club. I'm just going to note no book for January, just so that I don't panic later on and think that I missed it because I didn't have time for it. There just wasn't a pick for January. So let me just write that in. And then for February, the book club pick is Hear My Heart by Tay Monet. I am in the process of reading that and I'm really enjoying it so far. So I think I will be able to add that into my February spread next month, and I'm so excited for that. And hopefully I will have finished it so you can also hear about my rating on it. For the Fiction Falls Book Club spread, there's nothing to add here because there isn't a pick for January. It was A Darker Shade of Magic, which you already saw my thoughts on that earlier. The Reese's Book Club spread I have not yet set up, but I do need to set that up very soon. This unnamed book club is going to be the Haunted Library library book club. And in January, I did read The Place Where They Buried Your Heart, which was the pick of the month. I do have to get this set up so I can add in this copy of the book in here. I'm so excited for how this spread is going to look. I am trying to participate in as many months of this book club as possible. I think this is one of my highest priority book clubs for 2026. And then for buddy reads, there's nothing to update here. I will update that at the end of February once I have finished my first one of the year. And then we have my January book bingo. So I'll write in all the books that were on my January TBR and then the ones that I ended up getting to this month. So we can kind of keep track of what I ended up reading and what was on my TBR and go from there. And then we'll see if I made a book bingo, but I'll speak you through the process of updating my January TBR spread and go through that quickly. And then I'll come back to check if we have a book bingo together. Okay, so I updated the books that I read in January and then what I read from my TBR, all of that. So that's all updated. I didn't get to, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 books from my TBR that I did not get to, but it was a very ambitious TBR. So I did read more than 5 books this month. I read 11, so I can definitely mark that off. I'm gonna put a little check mark here. Did I finish a book in a single sitting? Yeah, I did. I read the saga volumes each in a single sitting, so I can mark that off. I read the first book in a series. I read A Darker Shade of Magic, and I also read The Sisters of Seaview. Reading 2+ books currently. Did I read 2+ books at the same time? I did. Did I read a book recommended by a subscriber? No. Did I read a book featuring the found family trope? The House in the Cerulean Sea had that, so I can mark that off. Have I read a book that was on my TBR for more than 1 year? Yes. A Darker Shade of Magic was on my TBR for more than a year. Did I read a book set in the wintertime? Yes. I read A Winter by the Sea. Did I read a physical library book? Yes. I read A Darker Shade of Magic for that. Did I read a book as part of a book club? Quite a few of these were book club reads. Did I read a book under 300 pages? I think these saga volumes are under 300 pages. And did I read a book that has an adaptation? No, I did not do that. But I do think I got a few bingos, so let's see. I read a book as part of a book club, so we could say that is, let's say, The Place Where They Buried Your Heart. Right, let's put that there. And then I read the first book in a series. Let's put that as The Sisters of Seaview. And I finished a book in a single sitting, so I'll put Saga Volume 7 there. So I got a bingo this way. Did I get a bingo any other way? I did not read a book recommended by a subscriber. I read Saga Volume 7. Did I read 2+ books currently, or at the same time, concurrently? Yes, I did. Did I read a book featuring the found family trope? Yes, I read The House in the Cerulean Sea. And then did I read a book that had been on my TBR for more than 1 year? Yes, I'll put A Darker Shade of Magic. So we definitely for sure got at least one bingo there. If the diagonal one doesn't count, this one definitely counts. So we got a bingo this way. And I also read a book set in the wintertime. That was A Winter by the Sea, the sequel to The Sisters of Seaview. And I read a physical library book. That was A Darker Shade of Magic. So I'll put A Darker Shade of Magic here, and then I'll add in here Saga Volume 8, since I don't think I'm going to get another bingo, because that was also on my TBR for more than 1 year. So definitely got that with that one. So we got a bingo this way as well. I don't think we got another one. Nope. Yeah, we got those 3. So I got 3 bingos for January, so that was pretty good. Okay, let's continue updating. Let's move on. For my January read spreads, I don't think I have all the covers for my favorite books for this month. I do have the cover for The House in the Cerulean Sea because that was one of my favorites this month, so I'll add that in. I think that was my top favorite read of January. I gave it 5 stars, so that will go at the top. Yes, let's add that in right there. Perfect. This is just going to be my favorite reads of January. We'll go here and let me fill in. This was 5 stars. I love this book so much. I love the found family trope in it. And it really got me inspired to want to pick up more fantasy books again in January. So I'm excited for all of that. I can't wait to read more of them. I think cozy fantasies could really work for me, as The House in the Cerulean Sea was a cozy fantasy. So that might be something for me to explore more in 2026. And I think it got me more open to just wanting to read just more urban fantasy and even high fantasy as well. I'm considering diving into the Sanderson Cosmere universe in 2026. I don't know if that will be too much of a commitment for this year for me. I don't plan on reading all the books this year, obviously. That would be way too much, but I'd like to try to pick up 1 or 2 of them at least, just to dip my toes in, see if I like it, and kind of go from there. Hopefully, I will find some new fantasy books that will really work for me, just like The House in the Cerulean Sea did. And then I will write in my rating for that. I'll speed you through that in just a second. What were my other top reads? I think I gave Darker Shade of Magic 3.5 stars. What did I give 4 stars? Let me check earlier. Let's see. I gave The House in the Cerulean Sea 5 stars. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I think I'm gonna put that one next. That was a pretty high 4-star for me. So I Who Have Never Known Men. I'm not sure if that will stay as a 4-star or if it'll bump up to a 4.25 star. It's definitely something I can reevaluate down the line. Maybe it'll be like a 4.25 because it was so well written. It was kind of disturbing at times, but I found the story to be very engaging, and it has some good literary critique happening in there. I would classify it as like a sci-fi literary fiction genre bending book. It's hard to know exactly what genre to fit it in with, but it was so well done. It really got you thinking about what it means to be a human, what it means to be a woman, and all of the expectations that we set for ourselves in society. So I'll write in here, I Who Have Never Known Men, so I can make sure to print that out as my second book. Let me write it here as well. Perfect. And then what were some of my other favorite reads of January? I think it's mainly going to be like 4-star reads. There might be a 3.5-star read that gets added to this list. So I had that at 4 stars. Then I had Samantha's Surprise at 4 stars. So that will also get added here. Saga Volume 7, Darker Shade of Magic, Place Where They Buried Your Heart was 3.5. Okay, so Saga Volume 7 I think will be next. Saga Volume 7. That was also a 4-star. I really enjoyed that volume a lot. And then Samantha's Surprise, I also gave 4 stars, so I'll put that one here. And then that one will be, I think that'll be my 3.5 stars. I don't think there's any other 4 stars for the month of January. So I'll add in A Darker Shade of Magic and then The Place Where They Buried Your Heart. Even though I've already written my review earlier in this journal, so I don't know if I'm gonna write a whole other review here or what I'll do for that. Maybe I'll add in like the thumbnail photo from our live show. That would be a nice thing to add here. That could be cool, just to add that in and not make it repetitive. So let me fill in my ratings for this. Saga Volume 7, I gave 4 stars to. And then I think I will speed you through my review writing process so you don't have to sit here arduously as I write in all of my reviews. And I'll actually speed you through my whole process of updating my ratings and my reviews. And then once I've done that, I'll catch up with you again. Okay, so off camera, I finished writing in the rest of my reviews for my January reads. I wrote in my review for I Who Have Never Known Men, Saga Volume 7, The Place Where They Buried Your Heart, and Samantha's Surprise. And I'm so excited. I can't wait to add in the covers for these, and I will be pretty much done with my spread. I'll also add in my thumbnail for the A Darker Shade of Magic live show here, because we did have our live show. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll link it in the description of the video just so you can go back and watch the replay. I'm really pleased that I have a good space to write some reviews in my journal and have space for that. I'm liking the look of it and it looks so full. I'm so happy with that. I also went ahead and updated the movies and TV shows that I watched in January. I didn't end up watching a lot, so I included 3 different things here. Later on, I will write my reviews here, what I thought of it. It'll probably be more informal than my book reviews because I don't really tend to sit and review movies as I watch them. And I tried to just view movies and TV shows more for enjoyment. So I'll add in like the covers of the TV show here and some reviews here off camera. My hand was starting to cramp a little bit, so I decided not to do it right now. So next is my February TBR spreads, and this is gonna be all of my monthly spreads. I think I will set these up in my February update to have them ready then, since we've done quite a bit of updating for this part. I also did want to show you that I did update my index off camera. So we have pages 4 through 149 all outlined here, and I wrote in what every single spread is. So I'm so glad that this is updated now. I did it all in pencil so I can still erase things and move things around if I really needed to. But I did want my index ready and running for the year because I want to be able to use it and refer to it throughout the rest of the months. So I thought it made sense to update this off camera. And I'm really pleased with the progress that we've made with my journals so far. I think I'll have to do at least one more setup video very soon to finish setting up my book club spreads and other pending year-long spreads that I want to start using at the beginning of the year, just to make sure that everything is all set up. And then in my monthly update videos, we'll set up my monthly spreads and then fill them in. And I think that'll be a great way of getting everything updated. So thank you so much if you joined me for this update video. I really appreciate you for watching. And I know that this one was a little bit more in depth, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this reading journal content. I also have some bookish themed content on my channel, and you will see my January wrap up coming very soon, as well as some more reading journal updates. Wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, I hope that you're doing well, and I'll see you for another video soon. Bye!